Uh, so I know I don't normally use my YouTube channel for anything, but I feel like this is a point of discussion that needs to be made. So, um, I want to put out a disclaimer that there was no NDA, sorry. Again, this video is going to be very raw. I'm not going to do anything to this video so you know that it's genuine. So there was no NDA. And there was no contract, meaning that frankly they can't stop me about talking about this situation. Um, and they can't stop me from speaking out my side of the situation, as it were. So, for those who know me and have been following me for a period of time, obviously you know me from RWBY.VR, other things like that, where I voices Waishni from Ruby. Um, And, I had worked really hard on my impressions at that point and had done so much work for myself. And it was nice to be able to do that for people, be there for them and, just genuinely be there for people, share my gift. I'd spent all my time in high school learning how to do the voice. And from the time that I was 14, turning 15, I was known uh, as I joined the community as Weiss. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, there are some experiences that I wish I could change, but, who doesn't have those kinds of regrets? Anyway, about 3-4 years ago, RWBY.VR started as RWBY.VR because it was supposed to be the connection to a series done on Visual Outcast Studios channel. So the project was initially started up by Zippy, and everyone knows who Zippy is if you're part of the RWBY.VR community. And Zippy was initially like, hey, so I've had this idea for a while. How cool would it be to gather our friends who can do voice impressions and make a channel? No, just friends messing around, recording our antics, and, just genuinely having fun. And, it seemed really cool at the time. So it was myself and, as we know, Ruby, Nora, Zippy, obviously. We had our editor at the time. The only issue with these kinds of groups is there is a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. And I want to repurpose this again. I have not signed an NDA. So technically they can't come after me for saying anything that I say in this video. This is not me trying to smear their name. This is just me saying my experiences when I was with the channel for the past 4 years. It's quite literally just me explaining, like, hey, this is what's happened. So yeah. So at the time when RWBY.VR first started, we had Zippy with his girlfriend at the time being Blake. And there was a bit of a rough patch that ended up happening at the beginning of our first year, where RWBY.VR actually disbanded and broke apart because of some things behind the scenes that I don't know the full detail of, so I can't go into full detail about them. But we did start back up again, split off from things that had happened, and we had grabbed a couple of new VAs and reopened as RWBY.VR. So that's where we adapted the name that the channel currently has. No, again, issues arose pretty quickly. Obviously we're all adults, we have lives. Some people work night shift, some people weren't Australian, so we had like half the team that was Australian, half the team that was American. So sometimes when it came down to recording, there just wasn't a time that was easy for people, I guess. But it started off initially fine. Things were scheduled and things were going really well. We'd see who was available, who wasn't, and then we decide, okay, what video can we put out this week, or what video can we get recorded this week to go out at a later date. Eventually, about a year ago, I want to say, is when things started to really go downhill for the OG team. And obviously this year as well. But basically, our Blake couldn't turn up anymore because she had a situation happening, which granted is fair. So we brought in a new Blake, which was another girlfriend of Zippy's, despite the fact that there was a rule made that voice actors couldn't be actually dating one another. So again, there was already a broken rule, and it was a rule that Zippy had created himself. So it just didn't work out as well as we had hoped. So I don't really remember a lot of the details from last year-ish, because like my attendance was patchy to begin with because I was having a really shit time at my job, and just there was a lot going on last year. Same as this year, I haven't really had a break of just bad things happening, which is what's led to the current situation as it is, which I did explain in minor detail over on my my Twitter, or X, or whatever you want to call it. So basically end of last year, beginning of this year, obviously with how dead Ruby's been, I started kind of focusing a little bit more on learning how to do voices from Murder Drones, TADC, you know, just trying to expand my horizons a little bit as a voice impressionist, which, you know, seems to have been taken quite well so far. You know, I'm a pretty big presence in the Murder Drones community on VR chat at the moment. I have a lot of people who will pop up and go, hey, I know you. And it's like, okay, cool. Sorry, I'm going on a bit of a ramble. Basically, how else can I put this? My attendance this year had been quite low, mainly because at the time there was only 3 OG members left, which was myself, Zippy, and of course our Nora VA. And we'd brought in a bunch of new VAs, and obviously we had our new editor, which we've had for quite a while. And essentially what ended up happening was obviously my attendance dropped even further. I had changed jobs because I really needed to change jobs. Which again, surrounding that, I had 3 months off after I left my last job. And a lot happened in that 3 months. So I broke up with my boyfriend at the time. So that was huge because we'd been in a 1-year relationship at that point, which I know for most people doesn't seem like a pretty big feat, but for me it is. As an aero ace woman, being in a relationship is scary, and it can be very taxing, and just in general just very anxiety inducing, especially if my partner wants something and I don't feel comfortable giving it. So I'd broken up with my boyfriend, which opened up some time because he stayed here with me for a week. But then I had a whole bunch of time open. So if you were around during that time, you might have seen me during the first stream that RWBY.VR did, where I was constantly lifting my headset and seemed to be like yelling at somebody. My ex was here at the time. And he kept coming in to disturb me, and that's why my headset kept getting lifted and why my energy was so low, because I was housing my ex at the time. So that was a whole situation as well. So obviously I was very mentally drained. Plus I'm very open about it. I suffer from PCOS, or what they're trying to rename as hormonal reproductive metabolic syndrome or something like that. And unfortunately, at the end of that week, which I could sense that it was coming, I was practically debilitated. I could hardly walk. Even keeping water down was enough to make me feel like I needed to throw up. I couldn't eat. I was just a mess by the end of that week. So I was really doing it tough. Because my condition just wrecks my body. And, you know, obviously the situation didn't help with my stress either. I'm still currently recuperating. So he finally went home. I came back, had that 3 months off from July to September, like beginning of September, because like it was like all of July. September. Yeah, well, yeah, basically all of September. And then October was when I officially started work. Yeah, October was when I officially started. So basically I had from July to the end of September off. And there was just a lot that had happened during that time. You know, obviously end of July, broke up with my boyfriend. Found out in early September that my nan, my dad's mum, had taken a pretty nasty fall and she was in a bad shape. And she'd always had really poor health. So there was that as well. And obviously I started doing some work at my new workplace because we needed to have the center open by October. So we needed to make sure things were in place. But for the entirety of July and August, I was available basically 24/7. I wasn't falling asleep until 3 a.m. And I was waking up pretty early despite falling asleep at 3 a.m. because my circadian rhythm's a pain in the dick, literally. So basically, I guess what really started it for me was that I was going through so much already. Like, you know, I'd heard about Nan's fall and, you know, I'd been at work all day when the situation happened. So I was covered in dust and sweat and, you know, because it was starting to warm up, you know, and I'd been inside a warm building all day. And I'm someone who wears hoodies all year round, which, you know, I really shouldn't, but I do. And, you know, I was hot, I was sticky. I just wanted to come in, have a nice cold drink, have a nice cold shower, and then get ready to vibe. And my phone goes off and I'm like, oh, I wonder who's calling me. So I check the caller ID and it shows up as Zippy. And I was like, oh, okay. So I answered the call and he's like, yo, what's up? And I said, not much. I just got home. And he's like, oh, cool. What are you doing right now? And I said, I've just walked in the door. Like, I've literally just gotten home. And he's like, oh, cool. Get on VR chat. See you later. And hangs up. And I'm like, I wanted to have a shower. So I got on because we were trying to record the footage for the takeover of the channel for Halloween from you know, Cinder, Neo, Roman, that kind of thing. And a situation happened between me and a new cast member because we've been joking around and, you know, I hadn't seen anyone for a while. So I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to be on, I might as well have some good energy, right? So I ended up getting snapped at because recording was taking so long and people were tired. When I was pulled on, I was tired, but I had to keep the energy up because that's what needed to happen. So I got snapped at for essentially trying to keep up my energy as well as the others' energy because they were all getting tired. And as soon as recording was done, everyone basically fucked off and I was by myself. No one stayed to hang around. No one stayed to check on me. So it was really, really rough and just it really hurt my feelings to know that, you know, they just didn't seem to give a shit. That I'd been dragged on in my personal time when I'd gotten home from work. So I'd been socializing with other adults all day, and I hadn't had proper socialization for, again, 3 whole months, because I'd been staying at home and being a busybody because home was more safe at the time for me because my mental health just needed me to be in my space. So I stayed in my space and it was a big thing for me to go out and socialize with other adults, much less a lot of them that are quite a bit older than me or have more experience in child rearing and things like that. Because there was so much that I had to learn and everything was being crammed in there and I was so overwhelming. So basically by the end of September, so I just turned 24 because, you know, birthday is September 24th. I just turned 24. And the week after I turned 24, we were told that my nan, again, my dad's mum, didn't have very much longer to live. And unfortunately, she ended up passing away because her fall was just that severe and her health problems just caught up with her. She had a lung condition and had been on an oxygen tank pretty much the entire time I've known her, which was from about the time that I was about between 10 to 12 years old. So that was already a big wham. And then literally a week later, my boss, who had invited me out to my new center, and one that I had a really good bond with, she had been terminated because she couldn't keep up with the workload, from what I've been told. So again, I'd had major blows. So going down the list again, I changed jobs. Granted, broke up with my boyfriend. Okay. Had a death in the family. Okay. My boss got terminated. Okay. And as well as that, I have a sister with autism. She is level 2. She has the mental capacity of someone who is 12 to 14 years old. So despite the fact that she is 23, I call her Sister Helleborus. Sister Helleborus doesn't function like I do. She functions much like a teen, and depending on the influence she has at home, she either acts more like a child or she acts more like an adult, and it depends what influence she has at the time at home. Because of the death of that family member, she was really close to that family member and just didn't understand how to cope. And it was unfortunately putting a lot of strain on my parents. So I had to be there for her to, push through and kind of find her grounding again. I had to be the big sister. I had to help her out. And then while all that was going on, I got told that I was essentially being shit-talked behind my back by another member at RWBY.VR. And I was like, oh, well, I had told them that there had been a sick family member, and, I had broken up with my boyfriend. They know and knew about my medical condition myself, with the PCOS, and knew that stress is something that really fucks me up because it messes with my entire system. Again, PCOS messes with hormones, metabolism, and the nervous system. And unfortunately, I took a really bad turn. I was getting sick, my skin broke out again, my self-confidence issues happened again. There's just a lot of things that went haywire because my body was under that much stress. I will admit I had an eye twitch for 2 whole weeks around the death of my nan, and it drove me fucking insane. It was so hard to wear a headset because all the time, every second, I would just feel my eye twitch and my vision would go in that eye for a second. So you can imagine how hard it was trying to get on to try and do anything. The other issue was the scheduling things. So scheduling basically went down the hill because I'd been picked up by Glamrock Freddy and Friends. So I went back to go work with safety after clearing the air and, working through some things and looking back at events that happened back 4 years ago. I believe I was being quite heavily manipulated in the situation. I was cut off from people who I thought were amazing people, and I was picking up on the emotions of the rest of the team. And, I did put up a post asking something that I shouldn't have asked, but again, I had suffered RSV for a month, so I was very sick when I put up the video. I wasn't thinking straight. There was just a lot going on. So fast forward to about a month ago now, I want to say, because it was like the end of November, beginning of December. And I was like, okay, cool. My mental health is all right. I would like to return. So I expressed my want to return to a couple of members, only to be told that the now owner would have tried to have a discussion with me, except for the fact that he couldn't access me. Now, I want to clarify, I have this setting on my Discord where people can not message me unless I share a server or I'm friends with them. So I don't block anybody. So if they really wanted to have a discussion with me, they could have just sent another friends request and we could have had a civil discussion. And that's just not what ended up happening, apparently. So basically, I got a message saying that my social conduct was too poor for the taste of RWBY.VR. And I thought to myself, social conduct? What the do they mean social conduct? So I went around to my friends and they're like, you've literally done nothing wrong. Like, yes, okay, I walked out without saying anything, but I was worried at the time that I'd be seen as attention seeking because everyone already knew about all these problems, and I didn't want to have to stress myself out any further than what I already was with, again, a death in the family and having to be there for my family. So it's like I was doing my best to protect myself. And I thought, well, if I take a break, I'm not going to blow up on anyone because I know that's exactly where I was headed. I was that stressed out that I knew that if anyone tried to do anything, I probably would have blown up on them. And I don't like that version of myself. You know, again, I'm a woman who knows how scary I can be when I'm actually angry. And that's why I choose not to be in that mind space. And you know, it got really bad after I was told that my social conduct was too poor, which again, I believe I was told that my social conduct was too poor because I uploaded a video explaining my absence, which again are the reasons that I mentioned before. Um, and you know, I hadn't mentioned any names. I was very professional. I just said another cast member at RWBY.VR. I didn't smear anyone's names. I have the right. It is a human right that I am allowed to voice my story and my opinions based on what I witnessed and went through. You saying that I'm not conducting myself socially correctly for you, based on that, says more on you than it says on me. So it's just, you know, I've never said anyone's names. Obviously, everyone knows that Zippy was the original owner. That's why I've mentioned Zippy, but I've not mentioned any other creators' names or any other people's names who look after the channel as we speak. I have been very professional about this, and to be told that I am not conducting myself socially correctly for their tastes is not okay. It's not. So it actually got really bad because my anxiety was shot to hell because I was trying to work out what the do they mean not socially, to the point where my stress skyrocketed. It stayed up in the orange zone. And my heart rate was recorded to have gone up to 210, which for someone like me with an already fast heart rate who that sits between 80 to 90, you know, that's a very dangerous zone, you know. And that happened a number of times. I would start to hyperventilate and I'd started to black out, and you know, I just wasn't really doing well. And obviously I pushed past that, and now I've pushed past it, and now I've decided I'm uploading my side of the story. And again, they have no right to dismiss what I'm saying. They can try to dismiss what I'm saying, but those who know me know that I'm a genuine person. And I know that a lot of people from the server know me, and, you know, they've hung around me long enough to know that I'm not a person who lies. I'm not a person who says bullshit. It's not me. You know, I was a very caring member of the community when I was a part of it. I never left anyone out. You know, even during that first stream where Mercury was there, I took it upon myself to be there for Mercury. I taught him about stream etiquette. I taught him about things that he can and can't say on streams, you know. So I was doing what I thought was right. And yes, okay, I had a heated argument with Zippy over, you know, who would win in a zombie apocalypse or who would survive a zombie apocalypse between Yang and Weiss. And it did seem to be getting a little aggressive, but that's because when it came to talking to Zippy half the time, it could be really emotionally draining. And, you know, it felt like sometimes anything that I put forward wasn't being listened to. And I had been listening to him critique other voice actors for so long as well, and just meetings inside the server were just a mess. And most of the time it was just listening to, like, when we were pulling in VAs and things like that. I understand some of the VAs that we had trial out were creepy and just genuinely weren't great people, which again, I understand is completely fair and it's completely fine. But other ones were really genuinely good, but it seems like he took it as a strike against him when, you know, we had another Yang BA pop up, and he'd sit there and critique them, and, you know, it didn't seem right to me. And that was really hurtful and really unfair to the people who were actually genuinely giving it a go. So basically, RWBY.VR's had problems for a long time. And I'm really sad that they uploaded the Schneeb. Like, I agreed to it, yes, but that was on the premise that I was hoping to have come back, but that's obviously not the case. So again, the Schneebucks video was recorded last year in December, and only just now uploaded this December. And I agreed to it because, again, thought I was coming back. But it really hurts to see that content with myself is still up on their channel, and they're basically using content of me that isn't me anymore. And it's really sad to see that, you know, I'm not part of something, but they're writing off of the creation that Zippy made. You know, they're writing off of the hard work that we put in. You know, okay, I haven't been in a few videos, but I was in the early videos, and it's really painful to know that they are using content that I was part of, and people are going to keep looking at that and go, the voice sounds amazing and blah, blah, blah. And then people have no way to contact me. It's really rough. And basically just it really does pain me, because like I loved everyone in the RWBY.VR community, and you know, I miss all of them, and to hear that, you know, they're now going around and deleting comments or deleting messages of people asking about the OG team members is really upsetting. And I feel disgusted, I feel shamed, and I feel like I was used rather than treated as someone who was their friend. Because if I was truly their friend, again, they would have tried to have a simple conversation with me. They wouldn't have accused me of outcasting myself. They would have come in and check on me. They would have gone, hey, Wisteria, how's this going? No, instead, everything was basically radio silence. Sorry, my heart is racing. Like, I can feel my heart rate right now. I'm even starting to shake. I'm so sorry. But I'm not doing anything wrong by putting out this video. It's literally me just saying, hey, I was kicked out for very unfair reasons, just for letting people know where I was. And yes, okay, I put out some really angry rants on Twitter, or X. But again, I feel they were justified, because I have been let down and I have not been communicated with like I am a human being. And instead, I have been used, abused, and treated like nothing more than a voice, which just isn't the case. So take from this what you will. I can't promise that it will be received well. I just pray and hope that, you know, people remember that I'm not someone who bullshits, and that I am someone who genuinely puts my heart forward when it comes to a lot of these situations. And again, it's not me smearing anyone's name, it's just me explaining my situation that happened. And if RWBY.VR takes it as them as me spearing on their name, well, again, I apologize that they feel that way, but I also have the right to voice my own side of things. And, you know, I keep getting notifications that they are looking at my account. I keep getting notifications that they're looking at my TikTok. But they can't stop me from uploading content that has my own voice in it. So if I want to take clips of myself from their videos, like I've done with my other projects, and I upload them onto my account, that is me uploading my voice. Not them. It's my voice. My voice does not belong to them. And if they try and claim copyright, I'm going to turn around and say, no, these clips have my voice. And under new Australian law, they could get in serious trouble. So I'm just putting that out there right now, that if I upload content that has my voice in it, they can't say anything. Simple as that. Anyways, thank you for listening. And yeah.